Hello, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Yay, it's Valentine's Day. You know, I don't know why you get excited when you're with someone for years and years and years. It's like, it's just another day of the week, girl. Anyways, it's Valentine's Day. My hubby is at work. Sent me a sweet little message. Said, Happy Valentine's Day. I love you lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots more. Right. Okay. I ordered pizza for the kids. Ian's at work, and that's my Valentine's Day. I'm here with you, so happy Valentine's Day. Okay, so this is my, what did I call it? Weekly beauty picks and Chic Chat. That's the name of this video. Yes, it is. All right. Let me get on here. So I'm going to pick out my makeup, and we're going to have a chat. I'm going to go first with my primer. If you're new to my channel and you're wondering, Lisa, what in the heck, girl, are you doing now? I, at the beginning of the year, went through all of my makeup, put it on little bits of paper like that, got a bag that says what it is, primer, I got a blush bag, mascara bag, eyeshadow, blah, 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 foundation, you get the drill. Except for lipstick, I didn't do lipstick. Tarte Timeless, the Tati, I call it the Tati primer. So, the reason why I did this is because we have so much stuff, especially if you get subscription boxes and we're not using it. It's literally sits in a drawer. Things you like, you forget about. So now, every week, I play with, all week, one item that I've forgotten about, and I haven't touched this in a long time. So, that's the primer I'm going to be using today. It's the Tati, I call it the Tati primer. It's not Tati's primer. It's the Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer, and I know Tati loves it. So, that's why I call it the Tati primer. All right, the foundation I'm going to be using is Il Masquoi 6.5. Which one are you? Because I got one that's my shade and one that's like a summer shade. And I got to figure out which one is, okay, so this one is a summer shade here. I don't know if that one's really my summer shade. That's the one Ipsy sent me, and then I went and bought this one as an add-on. So we're going to be using that all week. That way, you know, it's a good thing with, especially deluxe sizes of stuff too. You use it all week and almost get rid of it. You know what I mean? Use it up. You forget that you have it. So that's what it is. So anyways, how is your weekend? Here in Ontario, tomorrow is a holiday. Is it a holiday all around Canada, the Family Day? Maybe. Hourglass concealer is what I'm going to be wearing as a concealer. Hourglass. I don't know. Is Family Day in Ontario or is it all around Canada? But it's a holiday tomorrow, so yay. And then the kids are going back to school. Marabella bronzer I'm going to be using. Oh, that's cool because I think we got that a few months ago. I only tried it once, maybe. Before Christmas, I think. Blush. Oh, Kat Von D Lolita blush. I'm excited about that one. I like that one. I had a good week last week. The items I got last week were really good. Highlight. What are you? Ofra. Madison Miller. Yay. Ofra Squad. Is it? I got to look at it. I got Ofra Squad there. Quad? Maybe it's her 3-1. I think that's probably what it is. This is a 3-1. Because yeah, the 3, right, I call it the quad, but it's not a quad because it's a 3. It's got a blush and 2 highlights inside. I probably should have picked that one for the blush, but oh well. Eyeshadows. Oh, Natasha Denona Lila, and I'm so excited because I was going, it's Valentine's Day. I hope I pick out something that's got like some pink and purples in it. So that's what we're going to be wearing. And you know what? I'm going to be wearing it all week. So you're going to be seeing some pink and purple looks all week. Mascara is the Lancome. That's the new mascara we got, which is great because I haven't done my review on it yet. So perfect. I'll be back. I'm going to pick up everything and I'll be right back. All right. Now that I'm, you know, got everything together and a little bit more organized, I just want to say, so with those little bits of paper, I stick it here in my book with the date that I pulled it out. Write everything down, and then throughout the year, like I'm going to run out of concealers and bronzers and stuff like that, so I'll go back and I'll pull it out and put it back in the bag, so that way, you know, I get some use out of the products that we get, especially with subscription boxes, because you know, girl, we get a lot. Okay, we are going to get started. So I thought for Chit Chat, because it's Valentine's Day, I thought a great conversation would be how you met your sweetheart. I want to hear about your love story. And I mean, even if you're not together with your love, you know, tell me a story, even like the first time you fell in love. Because I'm sure, you know, most of us here have been in love once, even, you know, even if you're not together anymore, stuff like that. I just want to hear a love story. And if you don't have a love story, tell me somebody else's love story. Maybe it's your parents, you know, or your sisters, or your friends, or if it's, you know, a story about how you and your best friend met. If you, you know, personally don't want to talk about your love story. And I want to be able to read them out next week on my weekly beauty pick video, your love story. So make sure, if you don't want me to read it out, to say, Lisa, I don't want you to read it out, okay? And there's my love calling me right now. Hold on. Oh, Lord, my shoulder. Okay, I'm back. So that was my love. He's bored at work. He did all the stoking. He did the truck check because the truck hasn't moved at the fire hall today. So he's like, he wants to hear those tones go off. It's got to be a long day for them, you know, at the fire hall. If you didn't know, my husband's a Toronto firefighter. And sometimes the truck just don't move. And it's like, it don't move all day, but then they're crazy busy at night. So when the truck don't move all day, they're like, oh, what kind of night are we going to have, right? So, and he's like, I just wish we would have a call. Because they did everything they can possibly do. He did all of his online training, cleaned the truck, the hall's cleaned, but they're having a nice roast dinner. And I was like, well, lovely, you're having a nice roast dinner. I gotta tell you, with this foundation, the Masquois, I'm thinking that the primer and the foundation do not go together. Because it's, like, I like the foundation. I do. I like the foundation, but it's, I think with the primer, it's making it more, well, it's not dewy looking, and I like a dewy looking foundation. It's natural. I would call it a natural looking foundation, but it's almost gearing, I think, with the primer, almost on the side of a bit of matte, but it's not gone cakey. So hopefully once it oxidizes, maybe I'll put some spray on my face to get a dewy look. Hopefully once it oxidizes, it might be a little bit better. But I think the shade is all right. Anyway, excuse me, I burped. So we're going to talk about love stories. So I got asked this a few times, and I know some of you guys who've been with me for a while, you know how Ian and I met, but some of you don't. So back in 2005, I went to Ireland. So I was seeing this guy. I can call him all kinds of names in the world, but I'll just say I was seeing this, you know, guy. And I was working at this company where I was the only girl. And it was a metal refining company. Like, we had one of the, and they call it presidents of provinces in China. So one of our main companies that we worked with was a president of this company in China, and they would come over, and it was a big deal. Like, we took them out to these fancy restaurants. Like, it was a big deal when they came. It was like a multi-billion-dollar company. The owner, his father's father's father or something like that started, you know, the company Bayer, like aspirin Bayer. So his family owned that company. So it was a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of money that went through that company, right? But I was the only girl, and I worked with a lot of chemical engineers, and I was the administrative assistant. And this was back in 2004, 2005, because I met Ian in 2005, yes. So one of the chemical engineers made a mistake on some paperwork or something like that, and blamed me. And I'm like, why are you blaming me? I don't have anything to do with your paperwork. Like, whatever it was, anyways, I got the blame for, which made no sense because, girl, I'm just answering the phone and making appointments, making reservations at the restaurant and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I got nothing to do with what happens really inside the company, right? Anyway, and I loved my boss. I really did. He was a beautiful, lovely man. I loved him. He had this dog as a bodyguard. I don't remember the name of the dog, but it was like it was like a bodyguard dog, like kind of a scary dog, right? And I remember the dog would come into my office, and I would always have dog bones because I was terrified of this dog. But you couldn't go near his owner. Like, you couldn't go near my boss. The dog would attack. You know what I mean? Like, he was trained to do that because, like, he's, old money. Like, he comes from what they call old money. You know what I mean? So, so whenever my boss came in the office, the dog would come in my office. And, I mean, I loved working there. I did. I loved working there. One time, a little story, one time the dog ate my shoes. And my boss took me to Aldo and just went, whatever she wants. And me at the time, I was like, oh, no, I'll go to the clearance section. Because I just couldn't imagine spending a lot of money on stuff, you know what I mean? Because, hey, I lived on my own. I wasn't making that much money. I think I was making like 30 grand a year, something like that. But like, to me, I was very frugal, you know what I mean? Like, it was a clearance section or it wasn't happening, right? And even if he was offering to buy the most expensive shoes in any store, I wasn't going to do that, because I seen him getting taken advantage of. Do you know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to be that person. So anyway, he brought me to Aldo. I picked out these shoes and he's like, you don't have to go to the clearance side, anyway. So I grabbed a couple more pairs of shoes. Only because this man was like, no, you need more. You need more. You need more, right? And then he got me a couple purses, and his wife, she took me shopping. Like, they were just lovely people, and I stupid me back then, but I fought against it. I did. I would fight against it, right? I'm like, no, don't spend money on me. No. Anyways, love my job. So this guy, he was brilliant. Whatever he did, he blamed it on me. And I refused because I'm like, I'm a Canadian woman, and I think there's only two people born and raised in Canada who live there, right? And some of the people who lived there who worked there, some of the men, they had some values or some thoughts that women weren't equal. Some did. Not all, but some did. And I refused to take the blame. And I was like, I'm not taking the blame for this. I didn't do this. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Anyway, this guy said he was going to quit if I didn't take the blame. And I still refused to take the blame. So I left work this was on a Friday. I left work on a Friday. And my manager, loved him. He was from Newfoundland. I absolutely loved him. Mr. Dan, I love him still. So we still talk to this day. Called me and said pretty much that I was fired. Because I refused to take the blame. And when it came to me or this chemical engineer who was brilliant, it was obviously they weren't going to pick me. It came down to it, right? Even though they knew that I didn't make the mistake, but I had to say I did to make him feel better, to not have anyone else look at him like he made it. It was messed up. It was messed up. And I refused to because I'm like, I don't know anything about this stuff. I don't know what he's talking about. And I was like, no, it wasn't me, and which they all knew that, but he needed me to say it was me for his own ego, he didn't want the rest of the people to look down on him. Anyways, so I got to call on Monday or throughout the weekend. I think Dan called me on Sunday and said, yeah, don't come in on Monday. I was fired because I didn't bow down. I didn't accept blame for something I didn't do, right? And they weren't going to get rid of him. So they gave me a nice severance pay. Like, the owner of the company, even though he didn't want to do it, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And it was like, sorry, you got to go, you know? So they gave me a nice severance pay. And I went, I'm following my dream. I'm going to Ireland. I'm going to Dublin. I didn't know anybody who lived in Dublin. Nobody at all. Let me just do my lips. Okay. So I got a very nice severance pay. And the boyfriend that I was sort of kind of seeing at the time. Now, we were kind of seeing each other for 2 years. I was only seeing him. He was only, what I thought was that he was only seeing me. He was my boyfriend, but he wouldn't say that. He would say with different people that he was my boyfriend. But he was like, he was an idiot. Anyway, I mean, he pretty much lived with me, you know, but he was just, he was, I think I was his money machine. And I was very naive, you know. You go through relationships and you live and you learn, you know. But he knew, it was funny, he knew I didn't love him. And even though I would say I did and stuff like that, he knew I didn't. And I knew I didn't, you know. And I think a lot of it was just being lonely. And I'm sure a lot of us have dated people that we really didn't like, but we just didn't want to be lonely. And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't, you know, do that to ourselves. You know what I mean? And sometimes being alone is so much better than being with somebody who doesn't respect you. You know, and that's what it was like with this guy. So anyways, when I got my severance pay, I always had this dream that I wanted to go to Ireland. And that's the first thing I did. I went and got my passport. I gave up my apartment. I either gave away or sold everything I had. And this guy, I'm like, flip you, you know, you're a bit of you know, we're not going anywhere. And I left. I went to Ireland and I stayed in Ireland in January. I came back, I think, I don't know, March, the beginning of March, the end of February, the beginning of March, back in 2005. So when I got back, I stayed with my sister and she was working at this bar and they needed help. And I'm not, I'm a good server, but in the nightclub scene, like the bar scene in the nighttime, I was good serving drinks, but I wasn't really good at my job. So anyway, so I started working at this bar in the nighttime, right? A couple shifts a week just to, you know, save some money to get my own place to find another job when I got back. And within the first week of me getting back, Ian, my husband, walked into the bar. And one of our mutual friends, her name was Liz, she came to me. So she would always come in with Ian and their other friend, Tony. And she came to me and she said, hey, my friend's got a crush on you. And I couldn't look at Ian. He had these beautiful blue eyes and these dimples that if I looked at him, I would blush immediately. I would feel the blood rushing up to my face. So I would serve him his drink and I wouldn't talk to him. He thought I was the biggest stuck-up ever, right? So anyway, I said to Liz, which one? And I mean, I would have been very excited if she had to say Ian, but she didn't. She said Tony. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, not interested. I wasn't interested in Tony, right? So I say about a month later, I left that job and I got a job where Liz was working. And that was at a restaurant, and it was called St. Louis. Well, it's called St. Louis now. I can't remember what it's called then. But I got a job working in the daytime. So I started working as a server on the tables for the first couple of weeks, and then I went to the bar, but in the daytime, right? So I think I started at 11, and I was done, I think, at, I don't know, shift change, I think at 5, something like that. So yeah, around 4 or 5, the shift changed, and that's when I was done for the day. So when I got back from Ireland, the ex-buddy called. I don't know how he found out, but he called like 2 days later. And, you know, stupid me, we hooked up again kind of thing. You know, it's just like, you're an idiot. But I was only with my sister, I think, for about a month when I got back and I got my own apartment. And the ex was coming over, and it just wasn't the same, right? I mean, I knew that he wasn't in love with me and I wasn't in love with him and stuff like that, you know, and he was an ass and he was, you know, using me for money. And anyway, so I'm working at this restaurant and oh my God, who comes there just about every day for lunch but Ian, right? And now, meanwhile, so in those 2 months from meeting him the first time, so that was in March. It was like 3 months. I probably met him in March, April, May, June. Met him at the first bar I worked at a couple of times. He came in there. And then going to, I think I started working at the restaurant in May. And he was there like every other day kind of thing. You know what I mean? Having lunch, right? He knew, you know, some of the girls. He knew the owners. He had friends there. Just come in and have lunch. And he would leave, you know, go get it. So Ian's got a son from a previous marriage that Ian raised. When him and his wife divorced, I think the son was 3 years old, Ian had the son. Like, he had sole custody of the son. So he would come for lunch around 1 o'clock and then leave, you know, just before 3 to go get his son from school. And I still wouldn't talk to him. Nope. I couldn't look at him because if I did, the blood would rush up to my face and I was so embarrassed, right? And meanwhile, the ex-boyfriend was still, you know, in my life, stuff like that. You know, I'd come home from work and he'd show up, even though he had an apartment. He was at my house all the time and I was buying the groceries and giving him money to party and doing stupid things like you do when you're, you know, young and silly, right? So anyway, this one day, so we always say he picked me up off the corner. So it was on a Sunday and I was at home and my ex was helping me paint because I think I just moved into the apartment like, I don't know, a couple weeks before or something like that. No, I was there for a month. And this is on June, so this was June 19th, 2005 on a Sunday. My ex was helping me paint. Sunday morning, I get a phone call from his ex-girlfriend of like 8 years ago, something like that, right? And she's telling me that I'm giving him money to go buy steaks and booze for him and his ex-girlfriend. Like, they're doing a deed, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. So I kicked him out. Went out. I remember picking up a slipper and throwing it at him, you know, like we do. Anyways, he left. That was a Lolita blush, by the way, and the Marabella bronzer. And now I'm using the Madison Miller Ofra. It's called the Squad. Okay, Midi Pellet Miller Squad is what it's called. So anyways, I told him where to go, right? And it was finally done. Like, it was like 2 people. Oh, no, it's broken. Look. I use this a lot. If you ever see this on Ipsy, girl, get it. It's beautiful. It's 2 highlights and a blush. Mine is completely ruined. Look at that. But it's beautiful. So anyways, I kicked him out. He left. I was done, you know. But I was crying. I was upset. I called my friend Liz, you know, crying my eyes out on the phone. Because it's not a good feeling when someone cheats on you. You know, whether you love the guy or if you don't, you know, we were on and off dating for 2 years, pretty much living with each other, you know what I mean? And then I find out all this truth, you know, and it was like, I don't want to say, like, I wasn't devastated because I knew I wasn't in love with him. You know, I had someone in my past. I knew what love was, you know, and I knew I wasn't in love with this guy. And he was just an asshole, pretty much, right? So anyway, I'm crying on the phone to my friend Liz, you know, and Liz and I work together. So I get up the next morning to go to work, and I'm late. So I go to the bus stop at Kipling and West Humber, and I'm waiting for the bus. And I hear someone go, "Hey, Lise, do you want to ride?" And I look over, and here's Ian in the fire van. So he's not in the fire truck, he's in the fire van because he was on modified duty because he had surgery on his knee, right? And he was going back to work in like a month or so later, or something like that. He was off for 6 months because he had surgery on his knee. So he yells out and asks me if I want to ride. And first I'm like, oh my God, he knows my name. So meanwhile, from the first time I met him until that day, every now and then I'd be sitting at home watching a movie with the ex-boyfriend, and his head would pop into my mind, like his face. I would see his face and it would pop into my mind, and I'd be like, why am I thinking about this guy? You know what I mean? Like, every now and then I'd think about him, and I'm like, why am I thinking about him? I wouldn't talk to him, you know, but he was very good looking. Still is. Little hottie. I forgot concealer, so we're going to try to put that on now. So anyways, I was like, okay. So I got in a van, and his story was he was driving down the street. He seen me at the bus stop. He knew I was going to be late for work. He pulled ahead of the lights, turned around in the fire van, came back, and he said if I was still there, he was going to ask me if I wanted to ride. So he did. I was still there. The bus didn't come, so he yelled out and said, hey, do you want to ride? So I got in a fire van. Now, at this point, I had no idea that he was a firefighter because I didn't speak to him and I didn't ask about him, you know, because even though I'm a loyal girl, you know, to me, I was seeing one person, right? So why am I asking about another guy, right? So I had no idea he was a firefighter. So I'm like, okay. So I got in a van, sat down, and my first thought was, I swear to God, the first thought that went through my mind was, I'm single and he's mine. And we had our first date that night, and that was June 20th, 2005. And we got married June 20th, 2020. And we have 2 kids. So that's pretty much how my relationship started with my husband. Yeah. So we make a joke when people ask us, you know, how did you meet or whatever? I always say, he picked me up off the street corner. So that's our joke. Yeah. Oh my God. When you look back on it, 15 years, 2 kids, you know, and relationships. I mean, relationships is a lot of work. It is. It's a lot of work. We have been through our struggles. Let me tell you, we have been through our struggles. There were some times that I didn't think we were going to make it. You know, there was one time we did split, only for a couple of months, some years ago. But yeah, you know, relationships, they are work. They are. And you got to communicate. And I think when you're with somebody for so long, you have kids. I forgot who I was. I forgot my dreams. I forgot my goals. I had kids. And everything just went aside, you know. And I think I took him for granted. He took me for granted. And, you know, in your 30s, you go through things. You know what I mean? Anyway, we did. We went through it, let me tell you. As a couple, we went through it. And we went through some things that a lot of couples would not be together now if they went through what we went through. But here's the Lila palette. But we stuck it out and survived it. And I have to say, the things that we've been through together, we're stronger now. Definitely stronger now as a couple than what we were 5 years ago. You know, when we lived in Coburg, Madison was 9 months old when we moved to Coburg, and we left just when she turned 4. No, when she turned 5, because she did senior kindergarten here in Toronto. And those were the worst years. And I would say the first probably 2 years or year and a half of us being back in Toronto were really bad. And, you know, some things, you go through things as a couple, and you gotta want to make it work and realize what you have as a family and if it's worth it, you know. And yeah, so we went through some things as a couple that most couples probably would not have come back from. You know, you gotta try, you gotta work at it. But if you got a partner who's not trying and not trying to make it better, not trying to make it work, not communicating, you know, then if that were to happen when we went through our trials and tribulations, we wouldn't be together today. But the two of us realize when you go through stuff what's important. And he's my best friend. And I'm his best friend. And we know that we have each other. I tell him all the time, you cannot die before me. Like, you can't. You know, I need to go first. And I say that all the time. I need to go first because I know you'll be okay. But I don't think I would be okay if he went first. I don't think I would, because he's my everything. He takes care of me, you know? Yeah, Mr. Macker, my baby cakes. But relationships, they can be tough. They can be. We all know that. And sometimes it don't work out, you know? And that's like no blame on anybody if they don't work out. People grow up. They grow apart. They change. They want different things. You know what I mean? Things happen in a relationship. And I think if two people really want a relationship to work, when really crappy things that most people would walk away from happen, you gotta want to make it work. Because if both parties aren't willing to forgive and move on from things, then it's not going to work, you know, and you're just wasting your time and you just throw in the towel then and go on. But if you're willing to talk, communicate, and get through the struggles together, what ends up on the other side could be beautiful, you know. And then there's couples who really, I mean, I was a product of my environment, of two people who shouldn't, you know, at one point should not have stayed together because it was so awful, you know, when I was raised. But they worked through it, you know, like, don't be with somebody for the kids if there's no way beyond it. You know what I'm saying? If you're not happy and you can't make it work and stuff like that, you know, don't stay, because your kids feel that, right? And I think today's environment is different. Like, I know when I was growing up, I had a lot of aunts stay with their husbands and went through a lot of things with their husbands and stuff. And when I asked, why did you stay? It was because, well, you know, when I married, I said for better or for worse kind of thing. But there's certain situations you don't want to stay because of. You know, if you're in an abusive relationship and stuff like that, don't stay for the kids. Don't, you know, there's so much help out there and it's not your fault. And I know, like, a lot of people are struggling with that today. Like, I think COVID, the amount of domestic abuse went through the roof. And I mean, it's always high, but it went even higher. So if you know somebody, or if you're somebody who's in an abusive marriage, an abusive relationship, there is help out there for you. It's not your fault, and you will be okay. You will survive, and so will your children. You know, I think the biggest thing that I've learned in the 15 years of our relationship, you know, we've been married for 1 year, together for 15, is I had to learn to love myself, and I stopped that, I think. When I had kids, I forgot to love myself, and you do have to put yourself first, and I didn't do that. I put everyone else ahead of me, and then my self-worth went down, right? So this Valentine's Day, even if you don't have a significant other, you have yourself. So do something good and special for you. Oh, this is such a nice mascara, Miss Lancome. Anyway, now that I'm almost 34 minutes, because, you know, I can't shut up, and this video keeps on going on and on. One of these days, I'm going to make this a short video. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I will one of these days. But yeah, I want to hear about your love stories. You know, when was maybe the first time you fell in love? If you haven't been in love before, you know, how you and your best friend met, or your parents' love story, or if you know of a love story and you want to tell about it. Write it in the comments down below. But that's my love story. That's how I met my baby cakes. And here we are today, going into our 16-year relationship. And I know I want to be his baby cakes until the day I die, girl, because he's going to be changing my diapers, that's for sure. Anyways, I love you. Have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day. I am working on a big giveaway, so that's going to be coming up soon, perhaps this week. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, everybody.